Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Bill Clementi, your teacher for non-Western literature this fall term, beginning very soon enough. Now, for 23 years, I've taught this class, and I got tired of doing the more traditional class, so I changed it last spring to non-Western detective fiction, which covers similar territory but from a different perspective. So you'll be learning about countries other than the United States, and even about the United States you didn't know. For instance, in our first novel, Mean Streets, that you'll read over the next 2 weeks, is about Osage Indians in Oklahoma. It's a murder mystery. Quite a good one, connected with the founding and reality of the FBI. It really took place, and there's a new book out about it I'm looking forward to reading. We'll also read a book, A Beautiful Place to Die. There you have it. And this one takes place in South Africa, right at the beginning of the apartheid. So you're going to go back in time and learn about what goes on in that country. I have another one. It's Inspector Dark of Dawson Mystery from Guyana. Is that where it is? Yes, Ghana's in the capital of Ghana. It's a murder mystery, and you'll learn about another African country and the interesting people there. You'll also go to, this is another one we'll spend 2 weeks on. It's a famous Leonardo Padura called Havana Red. He wrote 3 of them about Havana, and another book about Hemingway, and then a book about the assassination of Trotsky. Anyway, he's an interesting author, and this book takes place during the 90s, or the special period of Cuba after the fall of the communist nation, really, and all the aid stopped going to Cuba. So it was a very difficult time, and he's writing it as a police officer and a police detective, if you will. So you'll learn a lot about Cuba there. Also, now I don't have the book from India. I sent you a list that lists all the books, and there's a lot of humor in that one. And all the detectives are very different, and all spring from really the countries in which they live. So they're affected in many ways by the context. I think it's the last one we read. It's Devotion of Suspect X. And this book is from Japan. All of these are best-selling books by the authors in these various countries. I looked it up, all of them, and just to see, what was going on there. Men and women, writers. So I think you'll have a good time with that. You just have to keep up with the reading, which is substantial. It's 6 books in 8 weeks. I do 8 books in 8 weeks in the summer children's literature class on dystopian fiction. So it's more than doable. Now, each week you'll have a quiz, and I'll make a video for that quiz. Now, you'll also do discussion threads. Now, the quizzes are usually around 20 to 25 multiple choice or true-false questions. You have to finish it in one sitting. So read the material and look at the review videos. Okay, I'll be adding some other videos just to talk about the books a little bit as we move through the semester. You'll also have discussion threads, and for a minimum grade, for a C grade, you respond 2 times. You're going to aim for 8 to 10 sentences talking about significance. So you start one of your own links, one of your own threads, and then you respond in the minimum to something everybody else wrote, always to 7 to 10 sentences, the more you do, the higher grade you can achieve. So take these seriously. Each one counts 2%, so each week is 4% of your grade. So in fact, you control 32% of your grade just by really being diligent about the discussion threads and doing well on the quizzes. The videos answer all the questions that are on the quiz, so it behooves you to read carefully and also to listen carefully. In addition, you'll have a midterm and a final, and the midterm and the final will both be about 6 or 7 prompts, and you'll have choices on each of them. That is to say, you might have a line from a story, you might have a character, and you will write a couple strong paragraphs on each one. You will have almost a week to do these exams, and you can return multiple times between the time the exam goes up until its completion. Usually everything each week is due by midnight Sunday. Now this first week I'll let you go till Monday, but here's the caveat. The federal government requires now that you complete an assignment during this first week. So even if you don't take the quiz until Monday, you must at least make 1 or 2 attempts at the discussion threads. Now you want to get there early. Even if you haven't finished the half the book, you can still contribute to the discussion threads, which offer general questions that allow you to move in multiple directions. But I have to be able to say that you completed an assignment or started one, so that I can send the people at the college a note saying everybody completed everything, which always makes me happy because it's out of my hands if you don't. The college will administratively drop you. So watch out for the notes about that. Now, so the midterm and the final, you'll have 5 or 6 prompts to work on, mini little essays, if you will. In addition, you write an essay on one of the novels of your choice, concentrate on one of the detectives, and bring in some of the history and things like that. Each detective will have his way of doing things, and detective fiction is often male-dominated in the non-Western world, although there are 2 of our novels at least are written by women, so you can have fun with that, and I'll have more to say on these issues. Also, you'll find that each of the exams is worth 24%, and your paper's worth 20%. Now, if you get me your paper before the end of the 5th week, I will have time, theoretically, to grade it, and it'll give you an opportunity to elevate your grade by doing a good job on a revision. Okay, really those are the main rules of the class. You'll have almost a week to finish the exams. The essays, 2.5, 3 pages long. You might find some discrepancies at time on the videos. I'll make a lot of new ones. Some of them I won't bother to do that with, because I offered this class the first time around as a face-to-face class, which I will do again this spring. And so there might be something in there sometime on a video about what we did in class, a movie we saw, or things like that. I'll try to make sure that there's a minimum of that confusion, but know that you're in an online class. And again, you want to take those threads seriously, and the quizzes. And I'll make sure you have videos up. And on those videos, again, I give all the answers in my mini lecture over each of the books, or as in the case of the 2 longer ones that are more challenging, Mean Streets, and of course the Cuban detective fiction. And, the guy that writes it, Paduro, is one of the most famous Cuban authors around, with an incredible international reputation. Now, mean spirit. On the uh, page that I sent you, um, talking about the first week of class, and of course this video that I'm making for you, that we'll spend 2 weeks on Mean Street in the main because there are a lot of characters. Now, look at that link that you have there. Oh, wait, you have the whole. Um, I gave you a list of the characters. You have to look at them because there are a lot of them, and they're very interesting characters too. And you'll want to write on what strikes you as interesting about one or two of the characters for the discussion thread for the first week. Now go through and look at the list of the characters first, and then you find out what's going on in the book. Now, what's happened was true. Um, the Osage Indians were given wretched pieces of land, um, and they discovered oil on it, making the Osage Indians, who were lucky enough to have the black water, some of the richest people in the country, and also some of the most oppressed peoples in the country. And the wealth does not do a lot of good, as you're going to see, because some Indians don't have it, um, but also um, you're going to find a dichotomy there about between doing the old ways and the new ways, and so it's the idea of how polluted does it make the culture to have all this money, and it makes white people very jealous, and so the government, of course, manipulates the Indians. Many times they've decided they don't know how to spend their money correctly. I mean, some guy buys a bathtub for the backyard, and one house is filled with everything you can imagine of material value. Uh, Pianos. Another guy has a car in which he uses as a hothouse of a kind. I mean, there's just this spending, what we would call conspicuous consumption. And you'll see how the government gets involved there. And one of the things to pay attention to are again, the family, the difference between the people who are wealthy, the disenfranchised Indians who have lost touch with their culture, and the Hill people. The Hill people are very important for the novel. Um, you also have a couple interesting Indian characters who are very connected, if you will, with their traditions, um, and try to um, navigate their way through the white world. It is a true story in many ways. As I may have mentioned earlier, there's a new book out about this particular um, group of murders about which Linda Hogan, an American Indian writer, um, uh, well, at any rate, she develops all these characters who are necessarily real, but who depict um, issues of historical, non-fictional um, interest because the Indians start getting murdered. Um, and who's doing the murders will will not surprise you after you start learning about the characters. And nobody's perfect in the book. Um, Everybody has problems, and you're going to see this connection with the old ways, the spiritual ways that inform some of the characters who will eventually leave and go to the Hill people. But pretty much everybody gets hurt in one way or the other because the federal government gets involved too by assigning guardians over the Indians and really making it so they can't get the money they have. Um, and the guardians, of course, become rich at at the Indians' loss. There's a lot of corruption. But one of the guys who comes to investigate is an outsider, someone who has left his tribe um, and gone to work in Washington, D.C. as a detective for an organization that will eventually become the FBI. So the first half of the book is setting up the cascade of things that will happen in the second book. And you have a lot of interesting characters. So go through and look over the list of characters that I provided, and you'll see them in the book, and then take notes for the first half of the book, certainly, on who each character is, and you can share that information on the first week's discussion threads. So that's where you want to start, and I think you'll have a lot of fun. We're going to read a diverse group of books. Mean Spirit has a lot of characters, so you have to, get a grip on them. And the next book, we're going to jump to South Africa, and then we're going to stay in Africa for the third book. So we have 6 books to read in 8 weeks, which means you need to be diligent readers. That's why I sent you the things, so you can get a jump on Mean Spirit Streets. But once you get into them, like most detective fiction, you'll really see that it goes quickly and it's engaging, with the suspense of trying to figure out who does something so perhaps it won't happen again. Detective fiction is all pretty much the same in many respects. In most instances, you want to find out what happened before the book started. Murders, and some are succession of murders, as in The Children of the Streets. But it's basically trying to find out what happened before the book started, or, as in the case of one like Not a Beautiful Place to Die, but Children of the Streets, to stop a series of murders, serial murders, from continuing. And they're all caught up in the politics and the culture of the country. Especially true of Mean Spirit. It's about the cultural disintegration of the Osage Indian tribe as the white world intrudes. And that's what the Washington Post wrote about Linda Hogan's novel. So get in there, have some fun, write out the characters, write out your questions and things like that you can raise on the discussion threads. Remember that you want to really be diligent about them. Do not wait till Saturday. That's posting, that's not discussing. Get there early, raise questions, have discussions, and if you ask good questions, people will respond to them. And then, of course, anytime you have a question, give me a holler, and I'll be glad to do whatever I can to help you out. So welcome to non-Western detective fiction. I hope one of the fun, more enjoyable classes that you'll take, because you will learn a lot about non-Western culture, because each of the detectives is connected with their culture, and that will determine in many ways how they go about solving crimes. Okay, detective fiction is certainly international.